Long before the pyramids pierced the sky, the people of the Nile Valley lived in absolute terror of the night. When the sun dipped below the western horizon, the silence of the vast Egyptian desert was routinely shattered by the bone-chilling howls of wild jackals and scavenging desert dogs. For the early inhabitants of Egypt, these highly opportunistic predators were the ultimate nightmare, possessing a horrifying tendency to prowl around human settlements and aggressively dig up shallow graves to consume the freshly buried dead. To combat this terrifying reality, the ancient Egyptian mind utilized a brilliant psychological defense mechanism, completely inverting their greatest fear into their ultimate protector. They elevated the scavenging jackal to the divine status of a god, believing that by worshipping the canine form, they could command it to guard the dead rather than devour them. Thus was born Anubis, the ancient, jackal-headed lord of the necropolis, an enigmatic deity who stood at the exact crossroads of terrifying mortality and eternal salvation. He became the undisputed master of the embalming tent, the fierce guardian of the sacred tombs, and the incorruptible judge who guided terrified souls through the absolute darkness of the underworld. In his earliest, pre-dynastic incarnations, Anubis was completely unrivaled in his power over the realm of the dead. Long before the widespread popularity of Osiris, Anubis ruled the Egyptian underworld as a supreme, solitary sovereign. Ancient inscriptions carved into the walls of the oldest step pyramids explicitly invoke Anubis as the absolute master of the afterlife, the sole entity capable of granting a deceased pharaoh safe passage into the eternal realm. His physical depiction is a masterpiece of symbolic art, intentionally designed to convey both terror and profound spiritual hope. Unlike the dusty brown coats of actual desert jackals, Anubis was always painted in absolute, jet black. This specific color choice was not a biological error, but a deeply intentional theological statement. For the Egyptians, black was the color of the rotting, necrotic flesh of a decaying corpse, representing the inescapable reality of physical death. However, black was also the color of the rich, fertile silt deposited by the flooding Nile River every year, which brought agricultural abundance to the land. Therefore, the black visage of Anubis perfectly encapsulated his dual nature as the Lord of Death and the vital catalyst for eternal rebirth. As centuries passed and Egyptian theology evolved, the mythos surrounding Anubis underwent a profound transformation, seamlessly integrating him into the legendary family drama of the Osirian cycle. According to the later, widely accepted mythology, Anubis was the illegitimate child of the sun god Ra, or in other traditions, the offspring of Osiris and Nephthys. When the jealous god Set brutally murdered Osiris, tearing his body into scattered pieces across the landscape of Egypt, Anubis stepped forward to perform an act that would forever define Egyptian culture. Utilizing his profound knowledge of anatomy and magical preservation, Anubis painstakingly gathered the mutilated fragments of Osiris and invented the world's very first mummification process. He meticulously cleansed the divine flesh, packed the body with purifying natron salt, and wrapped the resurrected god in sacred linen bandages. By performing this legendary act, Anubis not only resurrected Osiris, allowing him to become the new king of the underworld, but he also provided the people of Egypt with a practical blueprint for achieving their own immortality. From that moment onward, Anubis assumed the highly respected role of the divine embalmer, the patron saint of the mortuary priests. The physical process of mummification was a massive, 70-day ordeal that required immense scientific skill and absolute religious devotion, and the presence of Anubis was felt throughout every second of the procedure. The specialized mortuary priests who performed the evisceration and wrapping, known as the Smu priests, frequently wore massive, heavy wooden masks shaped like the snarling head of the jackal god. When a grieving family handed over the body of their loved one, they believed they were literally surrendering the deceased into the hands of Anubis himself. The psychological impact of seeing a towering figure striding through the dim, incense-filled embalming tent, his face hidden behind the terrifying jackal mask, must have been overwhelming. These priests would carefully remove the rapidly decaying internal organs, placing them into 4 specialized canopic jars, each protected by a different minor deity, but always under the overarching supervision of the jackal lord. The heart, however, was always carefully left inside the chest cavity, as Anubis required it for the most terrifying and consequential ritual in the entire Egyptian belief system. When the mummification was complete and the tomb was finally sealed, the true journey of the deceased began, and Anubis transitioned from the physical embalmer to the spiritual guide. He was known by the poetic title Opener of the Ways, taking the disoriented soul by the hand and leading it through the treacherous, demon-infested caverns of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. This terrifying journey eventually culminated in the massive Hall of Two Truths, where the ultimate fate of the soul would be definitively decided. Here, Anubis served as the divine scale master, orchestrating the legendary ritual known as the weighing of the heart. He would gently extract the soul's heart, which contained a perfect, unalterable record of their mortal deeds, and place it upon a massive golden scale. On the opposite side of the scale, Anubis placed the feather of Ma'at, representing absolute cosmic truth, justice, and universal harmony. Anubis meticulously adjusted the plummet, his sharp, canine eyes watching the balance with terrifying precision. If the heart was light, unburdened by malice or sin, Anubis would announce a favorable verdict to the assembled gods, granting eternal paradise. However, if the heart was heavy with cruelty, corruption, and malice, the scales would violently tip, and Anubis would abandon the unworthy soul to a fate far worse than simple death. Waiting impatiently at the base of the scales sat Ammit, a horrifying, demonic hybrid creature composed of a crocodile, a lion, and a hippopotamus, known as the Devourer of the Dead. Upon a failed judgment, Ammit would instantly consume the heavy heart, plunging the soul into complete oblivion, erasing them from existence for all eternity. Because of this absolute authority over the scales of justice, Anubis was respected with a level of terrifying reverence that transcended social classes. From the poorest farmers pulling water from the Nile to the most powerful pharaohs sitting upon golden thrones, absolutely every single person in Egypt knew that one day, they would have to stand vulnerable before the silent jackal god. His likeness was painted on millions of coffins, carved into countless amulets, and invoked in devastating curses designed to utterly annihilate the souls of anyone foolish enough to rob a sacred tomb. Thank you for journeying deep into the shadows of the ancient Egyptian underworld to explore the fascinating origins and the terrifying power of Anubis with me today. If unraveling the absolute mysteries of the jackal god, the grueling mummification process, and the high-stakes weighing of the human heart captivated your imagination, please take a moment to hit the like button to support our growing channel. What aspect of the Egyptian afterlife do you find the most fascinating, the scientific precision of the embalming process or the terrifying mythology of the ultimate judgment scales? Share your historical thoughts and personal theories in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the legendary mythologies and forgotten histories of the ancient world. Until next time, stay curious, respect the past, and stay vigilant.